Hey guys, Amber here with the Meeple family, and I have really been loving the game Evenfall, and I wanted to give you a quick idea of how it plays to see if it's something you might enjoy as well. This game really uses multi-use cards, a lot of resource management, building a tableau. It has a lot of engine combo-y goodness, to say the least. So I just want to give you an idea of how it plays, maybe play through one round so you can kind of see how the AI works, and if you think it would be a good idea to grab this game for your solo collection. Something to keep in mind, let me pull these down a little, is that we're only going to be using 2 locations for the solo mode. So I'm just going to set these up here. I've actually already dealt out some places of power. There's 2 decks in the game. So you are going to have this yellow deck, which is specifically to fill in these areas up here with the places of power. So these are basically places where you can perform rituals. Okay, let's look at what a ritual looks like. A ritual looks just like this, and it can be played onto one of these places of power. Now in setup, just the standard mode, I have 1 place of power. So if I wanted to play this ritual, I do have at least 1 place of power when the game starts. In order to play this card, I just have to pay the resources that are listed here. I can see that it's going to give me 2 victory points at the end of the game. There are some key words here. This one is specifically called a familiar, and that can come into play with different text or tags you see throughout the game. This specific one is also an additional worker placement spot. You can see there's several worker placement spots on the locations themselves, and then you can build them in your tableau too. The other types of cards we're going to see in this main deck, which looks like this on the back, are going to be specialist. Now these specialists are multi-use cards. I can either just look at this top section here that has the artwork on it. I can pay what is required, which for this one is knowledge, herb, and 3 potion. It's going to award me 3 victory points, and this is an ongoing effect that each time I advance on my coven track, I also am going to get 2 mana, which is this symbol here. If I choose to add this to my tableau as a specialist, it's going to go on the left side of my board just like that. Now I will say one thing about this game is there's a lot to keep track of, because as you're growing your tableau and your engine, you're trying to make sure you don't miss anything. Now like I said, these are multi-use cards. So I didn't talk about the bottom yet. If I choose to add this to my council, which is down here at the bottom of the board, I basically ignore this whole top part. And down at the bottom of the board, it says I pay 1 knowledge, 1 herb, and 1 potion for my first council member. Additional are going to cost 2 of each resource. But this first one is going to typically give me an endgame bonus or kind of a objective that I can try to navigate my game towards to get the most victory points at the end. For this one, it's 1 victory point for each ritual in your coven, or +6 if you have the most. So this is simply going to slide under there and now be a part of my tableau that I've built. So now that we've looked at kind of how these cards work, over here is the AI board. Let me show you how this works. You're going to pull out any 4 witches of a certain color. I'm going to choose red for this one. And you're going to have 2 of the trackers on this board. The first one is going to start with this one that says only with ritual. It has kind of like a down arrow and it has a yellow ring around it. You're going to start right there, and then this one is going to go on their coven track, which is kind of going to imitate what our coven track experience is like. This AI is really easy to run, so I want to give you a lot of confidence so you can play this game and really enjoy it. Basically, for the AI's turn, they are going to draw from this main deck. The first thing they're going to do is simply look at whatever card they flipped over the victory point. This particular one, nothing else matters except the victory point, which is 1. That's just going to tell us how far we need to move around the rondelle. So we just move 1 and we do what it says, which is coven track. That immediately tells us that they are going to move up on their coven track. Okay, they only have a few icons to deal with here. This card's then going to be discarded. This one means that we draw from the top of the places of power deck, and they're just going to immediately add a place of power into their tableau. They also need places of power in order to play rituals. So that is also going to start in their outer circle, and they will still need to move things into their inner circle. So this game has 2 sections. There's an outer circle and an inner circle. For our player boards, that outer circle is what's going to help us generate resources throughout the game, whereas the inner circle is more of the end of game scoring. So anything in the outer circle is going to get us production throughout the game, but by the end of the game, we're not going to score for anything that is left in this outer circle. We have to move it down to the inner circle for scoring to actually take place. The way we do that is we're looking for these really special icons. They look just like this. They kind of have a down arrow. They're only a few places, so you really have to be mindful that you don't wait too long in the game to take advantage of those. And many of them are also on your Coven track. So that is basically how the AI works. You draw from the main deck, you move around the rondel, and whatever they land on, you will do. So let's go over the rest of their actions because there's really not that many. For Northern Lakes or Central Mountains, if they land in one of those two spaces, you're gonna look at the leftmost card in the places of power. For this one, it is 2 witches, and for this one, it is 1. So depending on if they land on Northern or Central, let's say they land on Northern, I would take 2 witches and put them into this worker space here and take that leftmost places of power and add it to their tableau. If later on in the game they land on Northern Lakes again, they only have 1 witch, they still are able to just play that 1 witch and get the leftmost card even though it requires 2 witches. So that is something unique about the AI player. And then what about if later they land on Central Mountains but they have no workers left? Well, they're just gonna move right down to the next available action space they can do. So for this action space, it says play the top of the main deck. We're simply going to draw that card, and if they're able to, they are going to either play that as a specialist, if a specialist card, or a ritual, if they have a place of power, which they do. Now, the way that they organize where they want to put things is they always want to put things that have what is called a binding bonus. This one does not have a binding bonus, okay? You literally can just put a ritual on it and that's that. This one, however, does have a binding bonus. So when I play on top of this a ritual, it's going to unlock this capability. This one tells me that I can move this into my inner circle, which means the AI would score that. So that's exactly what I would do. I would place this down and move it into their inner circle for scoring. Now, some of the places of power are going to unlock when they have a binding bonus and you play a ritual on top. Sometimes they will give you, like this one gives you an herb and victory points. Well, the AI really doesn't collect resources. So anytime that you see a tangible resource that the AI is getting, or if it's moving on the mana track or anything like that, they're gonna get victory points in its place. So instead of getting an herb, they would actually get a victory point plus 2 for binding with an artifact if they were able to do that, for a total of 3 victory points. Now, we haven't gotten into the battle scenarios yet, so we'll cover a few other nuances about the AI opponent when we get there, but I want to go back over to our particular player area just to make sure you understand the rounds and kind of the nuances of the game. So when we get started, we are going to start with 3 potions and 3 herbs. Like I said, this game is played over 3 rounds, and we're just gonna rinse and repeat through the different stages of the rounds. So first we have scouting. At the top of our player board, we can see what the scouting action ability is for our particular player. It says we can draw 6 cards, so we will get 6 cards from the top of the main deck. We also get 3 books of knowledge, so we will add that to our resources here. And it also says we can move up 2 on the mana track. So we will go ahead and move up 2 on the mana track. And just like that, we are into the second phase of round 1, which is actions. So we are always first player when we are playing solo. So we have this really nice player aid here. Let's quickly go through what our actions are. The first thing we can do is discover a place of power. So if we want to discover a place of power, we're gonna do basically just like what the AI did. These cards tell us how many witches need to come to this worker location to discover that particular place of power. So for instance, let's say I want to go ahead and discover this archive area. I'm gonna put 2 witches out, and this is gonna move right into my outer circle, which is the top tableau area of your player board. Just remember, this bottom one is inner circle. So let's take a look at what this card is telling me. This is telling me that anytime I choose to harvest, so when you harvest any tableau building cards you have put here for your outer circle. You're looking for this icon and it's telling you what resource you're gonna get. For this one, we will get knowledge. This also has a binding bonus. So if I have a ritual in my hand, let me see if I do, specifically that is an enchantment, then I am going to get victory points as well as another, and I don't. I have 2 familiars, so I won't be able to take advantage of that just yet, but later in the game, If I am able to bind this with an enchantment ritual, that's going to give me a book of knowledge as well as 2 victory points. Now, you may notice we kind of have 2 sections here of workers. So we have ones that have these like straight pointy hats, and we have ones that have these little curved hats. These are called elders, and these are your witches. So the reason that they are separated is because elders can only go within the inner circle. They kind of have to stay close to home. Witches can go anywhere. So we only have 4 workers that can actually go anywhere. And these elders, we need to bring worker placements down into this area, into our inner circle, for them to actually be useful. Okay, so that is a brief overview of the place of power. Let's look at activate your clan token. Each player is going to have one of these little clan tokens here. This has that little harvest icon. And when we do this, it is telling me that when I activate this, I can go ahead and get an herb and a potion, and then I flip that face down. This is done once per round, and during the cleanup phase of round 1, we will flip that back over and refresh it for round 2. In addition to collecting for this particular player harvest, I also have added a book of knowledge that I am able to harvest as well. So if I were to harvest at this junction in the game, I would get these resources added to my collection. Another action we can do is actually play a card from our hand. And remember, our card options are going to be a specialist card, which is the top section, a council member, which is the bottom section, or a ritual card, which for me, I just have these familiars, and I kind of want to hold on to those because I don't have a good one that matches up with this just yet. So I think for this situation, I will go ahead and play this specialist. This specialist is going to cost me 3 herb and 1 book of knowledge. So that is going to be my whole turn. I will go ahead and pay for that. All right, and let's look at what this specialist is going to give me. So she's going to give me 2 victory points at the end of the game and an ongoing benefit. This benefit says reduce the cost of specialist and council members by 1 book of knowledge. So anything else I play in the game for specialist or council members, I can decrease that by 1 book of knowledge, which is great. All right, next on our action list that we can choose from is use an action space. That is as easy as it sounds, and there are some really powerful action spaces. So throughout the game, we may actually be able to create action spaces just like this one, where you can advance on the coven track and double its bonus, or we can see there's some action spaces on the actual location boards themselves. So this one lets me discard 1 of my cards in hand to get 3 of any resource. So I would simply move 1 of my witches there. Remember, elders cannot go there. Or this one where I can choose to either draw 3 cards, or I can move down one of my outer circle places of power to my inner circle, which remember is really important for scoring, and still be able to get 2 cards in hand, which I think would be the one I would choose to do. There's just a couple more things on this action selection that I want to show you. One of the other really cool things you can do is build catalyst. So there are 2 types of catalyst. These are just double-sided, but I'm going to show you each one. Pretty simple. For the top one, for the scythe, if I want to build this, what they are is they go right on the ritual card. And in fact, you can see there's like a little cutout right here of a square. So I'm going to place that right on there. And in order to do that, I have to pay 1 herb. So I'm going to pay my 1 herb, and that is now activated. What that means is it's going to duplicate whatever the harvest action is for this particular place of power. So for this one, I normally get 1 book. Well, instead of that, every harvest, I'm now going to get 2. Thanks to this scythe. Now the other thing we have here is an orb. So the orb is on the other side, and this is going to cost 2 potions. So I'm going to pay my 2 potions, and what that is going to do is I'm going to play that on the ritual, and that's going to allow me to advance on the coven track. And this is really important because there are a lot of powerful actions and victory points on this coven track. And lastly, we have a free action that you can take anytime, which is basically just to discard 2 cards to get any 1 resource. This really comes in handy if there's something you're short on or you really need. You can just trade in those 2 cards, put them in the discard pile, and get 1 of the 3 resources that you may be lacking. So the way that gameplay is going to work with the AI is, like I said, you're always going to go first. You're going to pick your 1 action to do, and then the AI is going to go. Remember, they're going to draw a card, they're going to move around their rondel, and they're going to do their action, and then it's back to you. Play is going to continue just like that until you pass. You're out of actions and you don't want to perform anything else. At that point, the AI will pass as well, and that will conclude the action phase. So next we go to the battle phase. Each region that we have set up is going to go through a battle. First, we're gonna do Northern Lakes, and then we're gonna look at Central Mountains. So the first thing we're gonna do is get this handy dandy little dial here, and we are gonna decide how much mana we want to add on to our battle total. So let me explain this to you. Over here is this mana board, and we've been, not the top part, that's the score, but on the bottom here is the mana board, and we've kind of been collecting this mana on and off from different abilities we've had during the action or during the scouting phase. So right now I have 5 mana that I can spend to kind of beef up my area control of this Northern Lakes location. Now, the interesting thing about these battles is that everybody kind of wins, but there is one overall winner who gets a power stone. Power stones come into play on the different places of power. Different stones are going to be multipliers for the victory points, and you put these on at the very end of the game to kind of multiply any of the ritual points that you have on those particular places of power. So for instance, this one, I can have any of these designs, whether it's the chevron, the circle, or the line, and it'll work in this place of power. But some of them are really specific, like this spirit bog only can take a circle. So for instance, at the end of the game, if I had this particular power stone, I would just add that to this set here, and that would mean instead of 2 victory points, I would get 4 victory points. Okay, so how does the battle work with playing solo? So for me, if I'm able to get at least 4 strength, which I already have just with my witches, I'm able to draw a card. That's gonna be my reward. If I can get up to 6, which means I have to add at least 2 mana, and I would need to spend that, 1, 2, then I can get to 6, and I'm gonna get 3 victory points and a card. But if I can get all the way to 8, which I can afford to do by spending all 5 of my mana, then I'm going to potentially be in the running to get one of the power stones and all 3 of these rewards for kind of conquering and having area majority in Northern Lakes. So technically I'm going into the battle with 9 points. So now we have to calculate for the AI. So the way the AI calculates is they get kind of 1 point for each witch, so that's 3. We're in round 1, so that's 1. If we were round 2, they'd get 2. Round 3, they'd get 3. And then we're gonna draw, this is where it gets a little crazy. We're gonna draw 3 cards, and we're gonna add up the victory points, and that's gonna go in their total. So right now we have 4 plus 5, 6, 2 for that one, 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, 12, they smoked me. So what that means is they're gonna get the power stone. They're gonna pick the one that is leftmost, so they'll get the circle one. And then we're both gonna get all of the rewards here. So for me, that means I can move down an outer circle to my inner circle, and they would do the same. And then we have 3 victory points. We both move up on that track, and I would get a card, but the AI really doesn't like those resources or cards, so they would just get an additional victory point. Now we're gonna follow the exact same principles for the second battle, but that is how the battle works with the AI. The last thing we have to do is really just the cleanup phase. It's the round end. So we're gonna discard all the places of power. Everybody's gonna get their witches back, and we are gonna put out new places of power. And you're always gonna wanna remember to flip that clan token back over so that you can harvest again during the next action phase of the game. I have really enjoyed this game, and I was excited to do kind of a quick teach on it, but hopefully this helps you understand all the mechanisms of this game. When I was first playing, it definitely took one playthrough to really see how everything's synergized, and when you do, it's quite mind-blowing how they have everything working together. This is a deep strategy game as you're building your engine to get the most victory points. And let me tell you, this AI is no joke. I have not won yet against this AI. I'm obviously not very good at building my engine, but I enjoy the world and the combo-y goodness this game has. So hopefully you guys can try this out if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments if you have tried Evenfall, what you think of it. I would love to know any tips or tricks you have for beating the AI, because they're smoking me, but I've really enjoyed getting this one to the table.